right, so ladies and gentlemen, I'm really excited today to have Francesc Miralles. I think I said your name correctly. Did I get that pretty good, Francesc?
Hello.
Hello.
Very happy to be here. Thank you for this invitation.
Yeah,
And it's a pleasure to have this talk with you.
thank you so much. I really have to tell you that I discovered your book, walking through a bookstore, and it caught my eye. And I read the front and the back, and I said, "Oh, why do I not know about this book already?" And this was many years ago at this point. When did that? And so I read the book and was devoted to the book, and I talked to friends about it, and then was like, I wonder if I could ever get this guy to come on the podcast. I have so many questions, and I'm so curious. Your book answered lots of questions, but I have more questions because this podcast focuses on creativity and how we make things. And a lot of what I was interested in is kind of the origin story of this book, and also book number 2, which has come out, right? And it's the Ikigai journey, just kind of taking us through the whole process here. And so to get us kind of started, and so people understand a little bit more, in case they haven't read the book, because I'm sure some people are now looking on their phones to go look up where to get the book. But can you explain in the best way you can, what is Ikigai? Can you explain that for us?
Yes. Ikigai is a Japanese word with many translations. Normally, it's translated as a purpose of life, reason to live, but also more freely like the motivation we have to get up in the morning and start doing things. So Ikigai actually, if we translate literally, means a life worth being lived.
I think a lot of the people who are listening to this, who know this podcast, will be really excited to hear that that's what we're talking about today. So here's what was exciting to me. So as I read this book, it's called Ikigai, The Japanese Secret to a Long and Happy Life. And so as I'm like, okay, it's all about purpose. Yes, that's my jam. I'm a coach. I work with people. And one of the first things that I'm confronted with in this book is it's about a life worth living and how that gives you longevity, how that gives you a longer life. And I was like, oh, this journey of this book is bigger than all that I was expecting in some ways. And so I'm curious for you, as you started unpacking this with your writing partner, Héctor García, how did you know where you were going, or did you discover it as you went along?
There was something of accident in the beginning of this project because Héctor and me were already friends. We were writing different books. He has a very famous book about Japan and contemporary culture called A Geek in Japan. Many travelers have The Lonely Planet and A Geek in Japan. It's in many languages translated. This is from Héctor. And I had been there writing novels and doing different things, writing for magazines in Spain. And we were walking in a park in the center of Tokyo. And this was the first time that Héctor told me that his father-in-law, because he's married to an Okinawan woman, had heard about this village of the centenarians, a tiny place north of the island of Okinawa, between the sea and the woods, a place with 2,000 people, maybe a little more, that they have the Guinness World Record of life expectancy, of long living, let's say that. And then Héctor said, why don't we go there to work as anthropologists, and we ask all these centenarians, how do they manage to live so long, so well, with so much energy? And so we started asking for permission to the town hall, to the circles of old people, to the different institutions of this place that is a rural village. And some months after, we got there and we could interview 100 people, the eldest. And one of the questions was, what is your reason to live? And many of them answered, I have an Ikigai. I have something that makes myself move in the morning. I have a motivation. I have something in the heart of the day. And this was the beginning of the project. We started transcribing the interviews, and then we had a lot of articles about medicine, nurture, social systems, the local religion that is different from other parts of Japan. And in the end, we wrote this book that it was a total surprise for us because it was number 1 in Spain from the first day. And in 1 month, maybe we had 25 translations, and we didn't expect anything of that.
Wow. Wow, wow. So when you and one of the things that I took away as I was reading this is when you and so what one of the things that I was excited about is you interviewed these people yourselves. This isn't data that you collected and then you actually went out and had these conversations. What was that? Was it hard to get people to say yes? Was it easy? Did they understand? Meaning, did they know what your journey was of what the book you were about to write? Or
No,
since you didn't know yet, in some ways, I guess.
they understood very well. Actually, we must say that these people was quite simple because these are people who work in the garden every day. This is a rural place with fruit trees, and they don't have cultural ikigais. So say they didn't say my ikigai is going to the cinema or going to an art exhibition. It was much more grounded to earth. They said my ikigai is working in the garden every day, being together with the friends, being outside and breathing this air, doing a bit of exercise, training myself for my 100th birthday. And
Oh,
this was the kind of answers that we got. And it was quite minimalist, actually. And we learned a lot from them that if you live in very close contact with nature and with the cycles of the light and the day and the night, and you are quite together with a community and you feel backed by your neighbors and you have relationships almost as if you were family, you will have energy to live 100 and maybe longer.
yeah. One of the things that I thought was so what you just described it. There's a word. It starts with an M, and I'm probably not going to say it. Morai. How do you say that word?
See,
MAO.
Moai, this is very interesting. And in United States, nowadays, I read that in California, some organizations are experiencing in creating moais of old people who back each other like a kind of independent organizations. And how it works in Okinawa. This village of Ogimi actually it's very big because maybe one neighborhood are a group of houses and then there is another neighborhood far away, and so there were 6 or 7 different moais, and every moai is a circle where 10, 12, 15 people meet a couple of times a week or some of them every day, depending. And it's not only a place to have fun together. Of course, they sing karaoke's and they practice sports and they celebrate birthdays and they talk and they make what in a social club in Europe or in United States would do. But there is also a compromise, even economically, that to belong to this Moai, you must pay something like $35 a month, and it goes to a common box. And then when any person of the Moai has some problem because maybe a hurricane broke the ceiling or your private insurance doesn't cover something that you must do for your leg, they took the money of everyone and they give it to this person. So the this is one reason why depression in this society it's almost inexistent because nobody feels alone. You know that if you fall, the Moai is going to back you. And this is very interesting for all people to give each other this kind of relationship. And I think that these experiences that are being now tested in California can be very, very interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I think what you say. So then, one of the things to a long life is having this community, for lack of a more
Having
fancy
your
word.
tribu, having a clan
Yeah,
in which you protect the others, and then you feel useful by doing that, and you feel that you are protected. So, actually, reading authors like the one of Sapiens and others, it's coming back to the origins of humankind, coming back to the groups of friends that
hmm,
were living before agriculture.
right, right. Yeah, yeah. That's very true. Before agriculture, that's very true. When we there was something that you also brought into the conversation, which is a approach of psychotherapy, which is logotherapy. And logotherapy, can you just define for the audience, and then I want to ask some questions
Yes,
about it. Yeah.
this is very interesting because after exploring the Ikigai under many points of view, we discovered that in Europe, in the Western world, there is a very interesting equivalence of this focus, therapeutic focus, and it's logotherapy. That means the therapy of finding a meaning of life. It was created in Europe by Viktor Frankl. Uh, exactly after the Second World War, he opened consultation of people who were in a very desperate situation. Maybe they had lost brothers, children, parents, they had lost their jobs, their houses. And then in this kind of uh, personal drama, something like psychoanalysis was useless because it's not the thing that you go to the past to explore the wounds and all this. Viktor Frankl needed to find a reason to live tomorrow so that this person
Mm.
doesn't suicide. And then he developed this way of treating the patient in the way that he or she can find something, even if it's something small, that can be the center of the day and give some light. And so it's
Mm.
very famous that when the clients came to his consultation, many were blaming the world, blaming society. They were very disappointed, very sad. And then he interrupted them. And a typical question of Frankel is, why don't you commit suicide? And then almost everyone had an answer. Oh, I
Mm.
would like to see my children graduating in university. I have the hope to be in love again, maybe. I would love to travel to this place, to learn piano, to write my book, my experiences. And then he put this thing in the center of the day and said, even if your day is horrible and you feel sad and you're depressed, give 1 hour a day to this beautiful project.
Ah.
And I will end with this. There were some young people who said, who couldn't even answer these questions and said, I don't love anything, I am not good for anything, I don't have a purpose, I don't have a plan, total nihilist. And then he said, if you don't have a purpose for life, I give you one. From now, your purpose in life will be discover what is your purpose. And this
Mm.
is a purpose itself, searching for that.
Yes, yes. And when you talk, logotherapy sounds a lot like coaching because my
Yeah,
job with my clients, in some
I would
ways,
say that coaching uses some of the discoveries of Viktor Frankl
yeah,
because it's something quite related to present, to the day to day of
yeah,
the person, not
right.
something going to the tree of the ancestors and something like that. No, it's something much more practical, like the coaching.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So what I'm taking away, so just as we're tracking this conversation, first thing first is if we want to have this long life and we want to have this purpose and this good feeling in our life, this joyful life, right? This happy life is having a purpose, even if that purpose is finding the purpose. One is the Morai, which is the community of people around you. And then the book also goes into food and movement, right? Can we tell
Yes,
me?
that's
Yeah.
that's very important because before traveling for the first time to OIMI, we came back a couple of months before the pandemic with National Geographic to shoot a documentary. But the first time when we were there, we had read a lot of medical reports who relate this long living with the kind of food, the way they nurture themselves. And not only in Ogimi, not only in Okinawa, but in Japan. They apply the law of 80%. That's called in Japanese harahachibu. And it means you can feel yourself until here, not until here. And harahachibu means eat only 80% of your hunger. So if you have 5 little dishes in your table and you are hungry enough to eat the 5, you eat only 4, you keep a little of hunger for the next meal, and then you will be lighter. Your digestive system won't hit so much, and you will live. Some doctors estimate that eating lightly can mean 8, 10 years more of life.
Wow. Wow. So
Yes.
so I'm kind of a Japanophile myself. I've been a few times. I've been reading lots of books. That's how kind of ways I discovered your book. As we're, and of course everyone loves to eat in Japan because you get all these little tiny plates and it feels special. Eating feels more, like you said, there's some more sacredness to it. You're making a decision about don't eat everything on your plate or decide how much you're eating, which I think is we don't have that relationship that much with eating, at least here in the West. Is this
Yeah.
one's on the plate? I'm gonna eat everything that's here, and I'm gonna eat till I'm full, right? And so this idea, last night as I was getting ready for today, I ate dinner and I was like, whoa, I'm a little bit hungry right now, and that is gonna be okay. And I was like, so a question for you: as you discover these things, how much have you been able to bring into your own life? Do these things become like, oh shoot, I'm not living the way I wrote my book, or how do you relate to learning these
No,
things?
quite a lot. Actually, when some journalists ask me if it's possible to bring this way of living of Japan to the Western world, I said, it's not a matter of Japan, of East or West. Actually, the way of living of Ogimi is very similar to a rural village in England, in United States, in Spain. Small place where you are very close related with your community. Maybe you are eating every day something that grows very near. You are outside practicing exercise. You are walking every day. You are breathing fresh air. Your inner clock is synchronizing all day with the outer clock of the daylight. And so actually the way of living of Ogimi, of Okinawa, is very similar to any rural community in the world. It's a way of life more connected with nature, with cycles, and with the simple life. And myself, for instance, I try to apply the law of 80%. I never eat more even when I am in a restaurant. Christians don't like to leave food on the table, on the dish. And before I used to eat it. Now what I do is I take it home, and sometimes it's forgotten in the fridge. But I stop. I would say 5% before I am
Yeah.
too too full.
So this what's coming to me as we're talking about this is you discovered food. We'll talk about movement and again about food, community, ikigai. How did you decide of these categories of movement, food, ikigai, community? Ikigai is what we're going for. That's the our book is going to be about this. Is it how was that something that you were just in the consciousness like this is the thing people aren't talking about, or what made you decide of these categories that was the book?
Actually, the organization of the book, there is first a presentation of the concept of Ikigai and why Okinawa is a blue zone, which are the different ingredients that they can be in the Guinness World Record for this reason. But then we dedicate a chapter to every block. So, food, we have already talked about food. We should say it also that this is not only the law of 80%. In Japan, if you have traveled there, the kind of meal are much less greasy than in any other country in the West. For instance, they say that the best veal in the world is the one of Kobe, the best meat. And when you go to a restaurant with Kobe meat in Tokyo, in another place, they put just maybe 50 grams or 100 grams with a bed of rice and vegetables. And actually, you are eating very little meat. But if you go to Argentina, to asado, or you go to Spain, maybe they are going to put 500 grams in your table. So this is another reason. This is another reason that their menu is very light and with very little grease. And then movement, it's also interesting. It's not only that they live outside and they work in the garden. Almost 100% of the inhabitants of Ogimi have a garden. And actually, the way of starting the day is like 5:30, 5:45, going to the garden, looking what happened there, taking something that is already ready. And this is the beginning of the day, touching the earth, touching the plants. But also, all the Japanese people, not only on Okinawa, they have the ritual. Like in China, they have Tai Chi. They have the ritual of starting the day with a very short set of exercises called Radio Taisho. It's called like this because it started in the radio in the beginning of the 20th century, and it's like a 7, 8, 9 movements, something similar to the Swedish gymnastic, something to get the body waken up. And Radio Taisho nowadays, maybe they follow it on TV or in YouTube, and almost all the Japanese start the day with these 3 minutes that make that bring vitality to the body, and then they start the day. This is also important.
Now I want to run to YouTube and go watch. I know that you have visuals inside of the book, but I want to go run and watch a video now on YouTube of someone doing this. So, in what I can say that I captured onto, in that I have seen in the work with my clients, even, is how much more purposeful. That may be the wrong word here because it's obvious, but how much happier they are when they know that the work that they're doing is for something greater than themselves. And so, was there ever like did you notice anything around the tendency around what people choose as their purpose is something that affects only themselves, or is it always something that might support the community or support other people? Was there any direct line around that?
Actually, this is very Japanese, what you comment. Doing something that is beyond yourself. The concept of ego is very different in Japan than in the Western countries. They love more the teamwork than the individual purpose. And so there are many things, many devices that were invented in Japan in the 60s and 70s that we don't even know who is the inventor. It was a team of people. And it has a lot to do with the resilience of the Japanese people against catastrophes. You know that Japan is not only a place that was destroyed in the Second World War. They have a lot of earthquakes, tsunamis. It happened that with Fukushima. And always when something like this happens, the message they give from the government and from the different institutions is Ganbatte, Ganbatte Nippon. It means Japanese, put your best effort. And this is very interesting because in Spain we say buena suerte, that it means good luck. So when you're going to I don't know, to an exam, to a job interview, first date with somebody you like, I don't know, an sports activity. If you are said good luck, it doesn't depend on you. The power is outside. Good luck means that maybe the person who is in the job interview is half asleep and doesn't notice that you are not good enough. Good luck is maybe that the best players are not in the other football team. But when you say gambate, do your best effort, the power is inside you. And for a Japanese, actually, when you have given everything you had, even if you are the last man or the last woman in the marathon, you have won because you win when you go 100% of your possibilities today.
Yeah. Wow. This makes me think of something else you mentioned in your book, which is kind of how psychotherapy or therapy, that as we know it today, doesn't necessarily gel with spirituality in the way that logotherapy does. And here I think you're really talking, to me, this is what you're talking about, is spirituality around how we're affecting other people. To me, that's how I sum up spirituality, is your kindness. And so it's connecting somehow that the Ikigai connects to the rest of what you're doing. So the people in the Moai are, they're gardening, they're taking care of them. Even they're taking care of themselves is because I'm taking care of myself so that I can be of service inside of my Moai. Was this did people say things like that? Were they connecting the dots in that way? Or is this something that you as the observer was noticing more?
No, actually, it's very interesting that when you observe the purpose of people, not only in Japan, also when you ask what is your Ikigai in any place of the world, the purpose is almost always connected with helping people. Almost. Even if your Ikigai is being a fine arts artist, a painter, actually the goal is to bring beauty to other people in an exhibition in your house. If your purpose is creating something that doesn't exist, some device, some program, it's to make the life of others better. If your purpose is writing a book, creating a new kind of education, this is always something to make a better world. It's very strange that you find an ikigai that it's only a pleasure for yourself. And this, the reflection I take from this is that almost every human being, the main need to have self-esteem is to feel oneself useful. If you are useful to community, if you are needed, then you feel that you have a value. The worst that can happen a person is to feel that it makes no difference if you are in this world or if you are not. There is no difference because nobody needs you, nobody is coming to you for help, for advice. And because of that, purpose normally is something that connects your inner talent, something that you have especially strong, and that you put it in the service of others.
Yeah. Wow. One of the things that I remarked on is sometimes when I'm working with clients, and let's see if you saw this in any of your observations, is when someone so someone will say, like, I work with a lot of actors, and I'll say they'll be feeling a little not great. They won't be feeling their happiest. And I'll say, well, when is the last time you acted? Which is, when is the last time have you been doing your purpose? And so sometimes what I find is, like, someone is like out of whack because they're not doing their purpose. Was that something that, like, the more, like, the distance between or the time between, did these conversations ever come up around, like, yeah, I haven't done that in a while, so I don't feel as good?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Can you repeat the last thing you said?
Sure. So, like, let's pretend I'm a painter, right? And so I paint and I feel very aligned, and then I take 3 weeks off from painting and I'm in a bad
Mm-hmm.
mood and I don't know why. And I said, well, you
Mm-hmm.
probably need to paint. Did the conversations around, like, I had to take a break from, like, if someone hurt themselves and, like, I wasn't able to I couldn't do my gardening that I do. It supports the Moai there. Did you hear conversations
Yes.
around?
It's possible to have uh, blocks between your purpose and yourself. One of them is money. This is strange, but it's like this. When Héctor, García, and me work with young people, and some of them have an idea of what they want to do with their lives, they are very interested to know if they are going to earn money with that. So if I write a book, will I be published? Can I leave my job and do only this? If I become a therapist, can I leave the office? Can I give up the bank or what I am doing right now? And this is a very shallow look of what is purpose. Actually, purpose doesn't mean that it's the only thing you do in your life. And we have very good examples for that. For instance, it's said that the best or the most original writer of the 20th century was Franz Kafka. He was a writer, but he had another job during the day. He was a lawyer working in an insurance company. He went there 8 hours a day, and then he came home, slept like 3 hours siesta, and then he worked and wrote every night until very late. And so he had a job that gave him money, and he had a dream that gave him life,
Mm,
energy. So it's totally possible to have a purpose in your life, but also to have a normal life with another kind of activities. So and even I would say that if you are starting something new, like coaching, there are many young people who start a course of coaching and they want to open consultation and receive clients. And this is a matter of a lot of time. And when I am asked about that, I say, first, you must learn from life. And maybe you can go to schools, give your support to children with problems, go to NGOs, go here, learn from life. And maybe in 4 years, in 5 years, in 6 years, you will be ready to help. This is something very important that Thoreau, the writer of Walden,
mhm,
said to all the young people who came enthusiastic. Normally, these young people who came to the Walden house, they wanted to be writers. And he said, before sitting for writing, you must stand up for living. So
mm,
life experience, I would say, is more important than any formation for, even if you want to be a coach, a therapist, an artist, or anything you want to do in this world.
Yeah. I love what you said there, because it also gives me a sense of, oh, I can know that my purpose is I'm meant to be an actor, or I'm meant to be a painter, or I'm meant to be a lawyer. And I can know that I don't have to do it tomorrow, I know that I'm learning about life right now. I'm going to gather my experiences that are going to be a part of this. So I don't have to have a urgency attached to it. Cause none of your takeaways here was, and you have to do your purpose right away. It has to happen fast. Like there was never like a destination here, cause you're not going to live to 111 years old if you're trying to hit the finish line all the time. Kind of
There is a process, and it's very interesting because the people who work in a very methodical way, I have a case of a friend of mine who was a very brilliant lawyer, but it came a point in his life in which he didn't like anymore that. He wanted to write historical novels, but he knew that if he left his job, he wouldn't have money to pay the rent and the normal expenses. So he made a plan so that in 10 years he could live only from the books. So what he did was a process of adaptation. First year, maybe he was stealing 1 hour a day to write, or maybe Friday afternoon he went home and wrote a little more. Then he got published for the first time. He started giving some clients to a friend of his, and after 10 years, the process was totally completed, and he was earning as much money with the books as he was earning as a lawyer, and then he could close and give the keys to somebody else. But like Malcolm Gladwell says, for a process like this, if you want to be excellent in something, you need 10,000 hours.
right.
And that's the thing that many people don't see. We are in a society of we get many things in the instantaneously. No? We buy with a click, we do it with a click, we see a friend with a click, but actually being a master of something needs a lot of time, a lot of patience, and a lot of resilience of doing that thing, even the days you would do something else.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. So, talking to you about this, do you see, out of these two books that you've written and put into the world, do you see is this your ikigai, to spread this word, to share
Yes,
this?
I have had different ikigais along my life. There was a time in which I studied German literature and language, and I thought that my future and my passion would be to be a German teacher. And then I did it, and I discovered that it was not the thing. And because of this, is very important, especially for young people, to allow yourself to commit mistakes, to prove something and say, okay, I am going to be a teacher, I am going to be a coach, I am going to be a therapist, I am going to be a policeman, I don't know. And when you are there, after 1 year, 2 years, you notice that you are not deeply connected to this activity. And it happened to me as a teacher, that in the beginning I had a lot of energy, but then I asked myself, do you want to spend the rest of your life teaching the same for German students who begin with the language, or you want something different? Then I had an ikigai as a publisher. I worked 2-3 years in a publishing house of books of spirituality, psychology, self-help. I thought also that it was my passion, but then I discovered that I hated going to the office every day, 8, 9, 10 days, the politics of the office, people doing mobbing. I didn't like at all that. And then I had an ikigai as a writer, but I would say that nowadays, what I have discovered, that what I love more is helping other people to discover their passions. And it can be by writing, or it can be in a conference, in a group of teenagers. It can be in many ways.
Yeah. And when one of the things I think everyone's probably listening to is how you just like, no, that's not it, and I'm turning the page and it's going to be something else. Was there a real, dark night of the soul, or were you really wrestling when you walked away from it, or did it come a little more easily to you when you were saying that's not the thing anymore? How did that come to you?
Yeah, in my case, yes. Between one passion and the other, normally there is a long night, as you said, because it can happen that you got tired of doing that, or that, for instance, when I quitted my job as publisher, it was because I suffered during more than 1 year mobbing from the older employees. And so I was totally depressed. I was waking up every day in the middle of the night. I didn't want to go to the job. As when I was a child, I didn't want to the school. And I felt very anxious and I was in a very bad mental condition. And then I did what so many Westerners have done. I left everything and I went to India. And I
Okay.
was I was 2 months in India with my girlfriend, visiting temples, walking in the streets, in the cheap trains here and there. And then I reconnected with life. There, I wrote my first novel for
Mm,
children. When I came back with this novel, I went to a literary prize. I didn't win, but the jury loved this book, and it was published afterwards. And there was moments of uncertainty. There was moments in which I thought I was going to be very poor the rest of my life. But I think that when you notice that a door is closed, you must be have the courage of trying something new. And if it's not the way, you can always come back to an office or to do something similar of what you were doing. So there are many opportunities and trials in this life.
yeah, I so appreciate that. And I appreciate you saying that because I think a lot of people can struggle with the idea of, am I quitting? Am I quitting something? Or are you making a new choice? And I think that can be quitting is one way to relate to it, or
So
deciding that something
yeah,
else is more
and you
important.
know, Brian, the quitting is a great topic now. Now in United States, the Great Resignation. What happened? Maybe we can comment this because it was during the pandemics that the world stopped in the beginning. In the first spring, the world stopped. People was at home, and
Mhm.
then many people who were working as waiters in, I don't know, in different places, they couldn't go to work. But when the world opened again, many didn't want to go back. And so only in 2 months, 8 million people quitted the job. It means something. It means that
Yeah.
some conscious arose there and they discovered that maybe this was not the life, the kind of life that they want to follow.
Yeah, I think that, it's when the pandemic, I don't want to ever make the pandemic into, oh, it was this great thing that happened because we all learned something because we lost so many people. But I also think that we do need to see what is the lesson that was being asked for us to learn. And I think there is something inside of that, what you just said. Well, I can say that for me, this has been such a great conversation to dig deeper into this concept. And so we have the two books, which of course we'll link to in the show notes here, but to leave us kind of just with a final thought, what has studying this taught you and that you're surprised by? Has anything surprised you along the way when you were learning this?
What has surprised me, talking with many people who were late bloomers. I knew a man who died some days ago,
Hmm, I'm
who
sorry.
had worked until 60 in jobs that were not meaningful for him. He was working in companies as in consultancy, doing things that were okay to have a salary, but that didn't resonate in himself. And then with 60, he decided to risk to have less money in his life. And the last 5, 6 years of his life, he opened a radio station, a very small one, in internet. Maybe there were some hundreds listening to that. And every week he was preparing an interview with people of the business world, philosophers, teachers, and he changed dramatically. He was a person so young, and he was laughing all the time. So what I have discovered is that when you connect with your passion, you are young again, and
Mm,
you are able to restart your life. And between you and your passion, sometimes there is the wall of your fear to say, what will happen if I do this? It's not very risky. But when you overpass this fear and you follow your passion, then the world helps you to find the ways in one way or in the other. Maybe this is talking with people what was more surprising for me.
yeah, that is beautiful. Francesca, I have to thank you so much for this
Thank you very much.
conversation. It's really, really lovely. And I cannot wait to jump into the second book because I've only read the first one 3 times and need to
Okay.
do the second one. So I can't wait. And again, as I said to everyone, we will link to all of the books and resources into the show notes here so that you can dig deeper into this really fascinating and wonderful subject, which is actually, I think, more than just fascinating, it's helpful. It is helpful to see your life in this way and to start to approach it this way. So thank you so much
Thank you
for
very
your time
much for
with me.
the
I
wonderful
really appreciate it.
interview.
Thank
It,
you.
it, it was very beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.